Hey folks, it's Pete Thorn. Welcome to the next video in my So You Want to Be a Pro Musician series. This one's about believing in yourself, because I believe it is the most baseline, core, root level, important thing that you can do. You've got to believe in yourself in order to accomplish goals in this business and in pretty much any business. Goals both big and small. You know, we've already established, and you guys know, the music business can be tough. There's plenty of ups and downs, highs and lows, and in order to get you through the lows to the highs, sometimes just that core root level belief in yourself is what it's going to take to get you through. Also, that belief has to be so strong sometimes in order to shut down the kind of sort of negative, reactionary things that your mind can go through when you're presented with even opportunities. You know, it could be a good thing that you're presented with, and sometimes your mind will go to the negative right away, like you'll get offered an opportunity for a gig or an audition, and it's going to require learning a lot of material. Oh, how am I going to learn all those songs? It's going to take so much dedication and time. Or, I've got a friend I'll relate a story about in a little bit here that had to learn how to become a really, really competent sight reader in a very, very short period of time. And it was his belief that he could do that that carried him through and actually allowed him to accomplish his goal. More on that in a bit. There's a band I was in a number of years ago called 40 Foot Echo, and we put out a self-titled album on Hollywood Records, and Murray Yates was the singer of that band, and he wrote a really, really cool lyric in the song Multiply from that record. It's the first line of the chorus. The lyric is, "You won't see it if you don't believe it." I always liked that lyric. I just connected with it on a really core level. And I don't know if this is exactly what he was trying to get across, but I interpreted it as, you're not going to see that end goal, that positive result, if you don't truly believe that you can do it, whatever that thing is. Staying in the light is something that I try and do. Don't go to the dark side of the force. Generally speaking, as a human being, I try and live my life that way. But I believe as human beings, it's real easy for us to self-sabotage and kind of talk ourselves out of our own ability to do things. I'll give you just a quick example. If I get a call these days about a gig, hey, can you come do this gig with us? It's 12 songs and it's, a week from Wednesday or whatever. Many times, in the back of my mind, what I'm thinking is, oh, it's going to be a lot of work, and I got all this on my plate. I don't know if I got time to do that. Right there, I'm self-sabotaging. The reality is, if I just believe, yeah, of course, I can get that done. It's not that many songs. I know if I devote 5 or 6 hours, I'm going to be able to learn those tunes and go out and have some fun and play this gig. But there is that little nagging voice in the back of my head. So, on a much bigger level, when you think about, let's say, moving from wherever you live to a music city like Nashville, LA, London, is it going to be possible for me to compete on that level with those musicians? I have a self-sabotaging thing about Nashville. My first instinct when I think, could I move to Nashville is I'd probably end up homeless on the street. When you can walk down, Broadway at any time of day and see these stellar musicians playing in these bars just ripping, it's what have I got to offer? Well, that's a negative way of thought. And I admit that I have that sometimes. And I know that I've got a different skill set that would hopefully be valuable to somebody even in a town like that where there's so many great musicians. So anyway, pushing these thoughts out of your head and believing that you can do it and believing that you got something to offer is so important. Otherwise, you're shooting yourself in the foot right out of the gate. So just on a core musical level, proving to yourself that you can learn complex parts, complex music, and get it under your fingers, that can be such an important thing. I remember going down to do, big auditions for folks like Don Henley and thinking how am I ever going to learn all this music, and how am I going to be able to compete with the other people going in and auditioning for this gig? But the reality is when I sit down with the music, I can learn the parts. I can get it under my fingers. I'm technically capable of playing it. And if I'm not technically capable of playing it right now, it's only going to require a certain amount of practice until I can do it and perform it competently. I know that. So at that point, it just becomes about getting the material under my fingers and practice, a lot of practice. And through doing that, I'm kind of proving to myself that I'm worthy. I'm capable of doing this. When I think back to when I was, just starting to play guitar, 12, 13, 14 years old, I remember seeing rock and roll guitar players on TV and thinking to myself, on this core naive, in my young mind, on that level thinking, well, someday that guy's going to be too old and there's going to need to be somebody else up there playing rock and roll, so there's no reason why that can't be me. It just requires that I put in the time and the work. And sometimes it's those sort of core, maybe naive, but really pure, sort of young, systems of thought that I fall back on now when there's too much noise getting in the way of me accomplishing things. It's cut out all the crap out of my mind. You can do this. Right now I'm tackling learning 13 songs of Queen music for a set that I'm going to play coming up in about a week. So I've had the songs for a few weeks. I kind of put off learning them for a minute, and then I got into about a week ago. And of course, the old familiar, fear feelings and the devil on your shoulder comes back, and I'm hearing the voices. Oh my God, this music's difficult. Did you bite off more than you can chew? Are you going to be able to pull it off? I'll admit I have those feelings. But of course I can do it. It's just a matter of pushing all that stuff aside and focusing on the music and really devoting some time to it, enough time to practice. It really comes down to the time and your devotion to just getting it done. That requires focus, it requires dedication, it requires turning off the phone, it requires, maybe not going out a couple nights a week and canceling some, social obligations and things like that in order to get the work done. At this juncture, it's probably good to mention that as independent musicians, we gotta be self-starters, right? I mean, nobody's gonna push you to do the work. Just to make this video here today, I had to, get the camera set up on my desk. Nobody's making me do this to put out on YouTube. I have to devote the time, gather my thoughts, and commit to doing it. So it's the same thing when I'm learning music, trying to accomplish difficult things so that I can go out in front of a crowd or maybe go to a session and perform that music. You got to be a self-starter and devote the time and put the effort in. But at the core, I know I can do it. I've mentioned an early teacher of mine, Terry McDade. He related a story to me once about getting a job where he was going to have to read at a very high level. It was at a music college, I believe, in Saskatchewan, Canada. And he was going to be teaching students that were far, far, far more advanced readers than he knew he was at that point. So there's a great saying, act as if until, and I believe that Terry did that in that case. He probably took a job that if he'd had to walk in that day and start teaching, he probably wasn't going to be able to pull it off. But he knew that given the right amount of time, focus, and dedication, he had that core belief that he was going to be able to get up to that level and walk into that room and confidently teach. So I think he said he had about 2 months, and he said he practiced 13 hours a day on sight reading in order to get up to that level. It's basically all he did for the next 2 months or so. His message to me was, you can do it if you believe it. You just have to believe that you can do it, and then you got to put in the time and you can pull it off. So let's talk about YouTube, Instagram, social media for a minute, and this whole phenomenon, like me being able to reach you guys directly through videos like this. There's a lot of musicians that I know that are older, and by older I mean, let's say over the age of 40, that have a ton to offer when it comes to both, musical concepts and ideas, playing, as well as just career advice and things like that. And I'll talk to them about what folks like me or Rick Beato or Tim Pierce have done using this platform. And I hear a lot of people kind of like self-sabotage and say, oh, I don't know, I don't know what I've got to offer. I don't know if anybody would be interested in what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to make these videos. And it's that same phenomenon, that sort of lack of belief that they've got anything anybody would be interested in and all that stuff, when clearly, from the outside, I can see like, man, you've got so much to offer. So I always try and be encouraging about this stuff and say, just try it. Like, I would love to know, for example, blah, blah, blah about what you do. And they'll go, really? Like, that's something people would be interested in? So there's all kinds of ways that we can self-sabotage, and that little voice in our heads can kind of, be trying to get our ear and steer us away from maybe what our true, path is and true destiny, being able to accomplish great things. So whether you're a kid trying to learn something for, say, a talent show at school, or whether you're a young adult maybe trying to decide if you want to move to a music town or maybe attend a college like Berkeley or a music school like Musicians Institute, some of the fears in your mind might be, can I compete? Am I going to screw up? Am I going to, fall flat on my face? Maybe you're already in a music town, you're trying to decide, well, why go to the audition? There's going to be another, 30 guitar players there that can probably play circles around me. How do I get into film and TV music? There's so many composers out there already. Who would care about my music? Why put out a solo album? Why record songs and write music? Who's going to want to hear what I have to say? It's in your best interest to try and eliminate those negative voices. I'm not saying to, see the world through rose-colored glasses and don't accept that there's going to be challenges. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. It's hard, it's difficult, but you have to have that core root belief in yourself that you can do it, that you can accomplish things, that you can get things done, to bust through the ceiling, get to the next level, and achieve your goals, both big and small. Look for inspiration from other people that have already done it, You don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Once again, when I was 14, I'd see people on TV playing. I thought, if they can do it, I can do it too. If you can see that, then you can believe it. But you won't see it if you don't believe it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of So You Want to Be a Pro Musician. Just remember that you have to believe it, that with the right amount of work and perseverance, you can bust through and do what you want to do. Please hit subscribe and come back and see me for more videos. Hit that little bell by the subscribe button if you don't mind, and then you'll get an alert when I put out a new video. I am Pete Thorn. Take care. See ya.